Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Broman Clash, and tonight I want to talk about a topic that it's a topic that is near and dear to me, and everybody's gonna reach it eventually, or some people already passed it. And that topic is adulthood. Now, some of you may ask, like, what is adulthood exactly? And or you already know what adulthood is. Some people will say that it's actually the physical manifestation, no, not physical manifestation, or physically growing up into that age where you're like 21, 25, and you're not considered to be a teenager anymore, and you're an adult now. You have your own responsibilities, you have your own, your own house, your own apartment, all that other stuff. But other people, like ancient cultures, they feel as if, like, in order to be considered an adult or a man or a woman, you have to go through a rites of passage. If you go through a rites of passage and you go through with that, then you gain experience, and then you understand what does it mean to truly be an adult, or what does it mean to truly be by yourself, and to truly sustain your own self. Then that's what it means to be considered an adult. See, adulthood goes two different ways, but when I look at nowadays, I feel as if like the latter should be more enforced than the former, because anybody can reach that age, unless God forbid, any great heavens forbid, if you get terminally ill, or sick, or if you die at birth. Like, that's a tragedy. Death is natural, but no, everyone knows it's gonna happen, but they don't expect when. Keyword expectation. Expect that to come up real soon. Sorry for saying that over much. But truth be told, when you look at adulthood, and the reason why I say, the latter when it's talking about rites of passage over the former, which comes with age, because when I look at adults nowadays, and when I look at grown people in general, I don't look at them with like eternal respect or endearment. In fact, I look at them as like the same way as I look at myself, or the same way as I look at some children or some teenagers, irresponsible. They don't even know what the hell they want to do. They're not afraid. They are afraid to take responsibility. They're afraid of legitimately saying, like, wait a minute, if this person dies, then I'm gonna be all by myself. And they can't handle being by themselves. And some kids, some young people, some kids, they grew up with the concept already, to the point that they are like grown-ups, but yet they are in small bodies. It's just like, this is a term I made up. Grown ass kids, but little ass adults. That's the problem nowadays. And where do the elders come in? See, look, the elders, if you're young, you love them, but when you become an adult, you look at them and say, you are too archaic. You're archaic. You don't know what the heck you were saying. What you do is old fashioned. I can understand that, certain methods that they did back then did not work, but you never know. In case, of a resort, you need to do that. But when you hear an adult do that, and you see a young kid, and that's their parent, that's their guardian, looking up at them saying, like, wait a minute, if they're talking to, grandma, grandpa, great grandmother, great grandfather like this, what makes me think that I should look at them the same way? So then now, once it comes right down to that, and how the way they, look at a perspective of adulthood, they don't look at adulthood as a way of maturing, or as a way of looking at the world instead of an innocent lens. They should look at it from a realistic standpoint. Instead of looking at it through expectations, they should look at it through, hey, if I don't do this for myself, it will never happen. Instead of just like, oh, I'll just sit here and wait on my ass for it to happen. It doesn't work that way. And even even I'm still struggling about it. Even though I just turned 20, and my 20th birthday was like what, like 2 months ago. So you could say I turned into an adult, but yet I still understand that I still need to learn. And that's the thing about adults nowadays, because adults nowadays, they are afraid to learn, man. They are afraid to, to be taught. There's, my math teacher, Mr. Harris, he always said this, the only time you stop learning is when you're dead. I did not get it at first because, I was young. I was 16 years old. I know 16 wasn't that far off from 20. But, the mental gap to me felt, way off from when I was 16. And then now I understand it because I'm just like, yo, Mr. Harris is right. He's a brilliant man. There are certain people that you look at and you can say, like, that's a man, that's a woman, because they reached adulthood. They understand responsibility. They don't, like I always say, you see this TV right there? See that bullshit? Yeah, they don't follow that. They don't, they do not follow TV. They do not want, how loving hip hop, Housewives of Atlanta. They don't watch none of that bullshit ass reality shows. And in fact, those so-called reality shows are just fucking scripted. They just use their real names. That's just it. They don't because they use their real names and they, you know, it's not all makeup and all that shit, even though they do use makeup here and there. But you get the point. They live realistic lives, but it's still scripted because, they have the camera and all that shit. I'm not trying to say that, if you don't have a camera, all that bullshit, your life is always scripted. You know, throughout your life, unless you're in the movie set, your life is totally unscripted. You can carve out your own destiny, but it's totally unscripted, meaning that sometimes you have to go with the flow, or if you want to be a river dam, you got to build up a river dam and make your own power source. But, making a river dam instead of going with the flow, it takes time and effort. And, what's equated with time and effort? Maturity and understanding. Something that, I'm going to be real with you. When I see adults nowadays, I don't really see it. Hence why look, only a select few of adults I've seen, and I know I've probably seen only like a mere 2% or something. 2% or 1%. Not even that much. But, I got like a grasp of what I want to see in my own adulthood. I don't want to see, beggars and complainers. I don't want to see, people talking about, you know what, man, why should I work? I should blame all my problems on this person. I should, get angry. I should get bitter. I should be, out there. I should have been a movie star. But instead, you disrespected the young brother that wanted to help himself, who actually had enough courage to say, hey, look, I love you and all that stuff. But yeah, you look at him and say, you're a nerd. But yeah, you go with the thug. And if you look at the end result, and you still go for that, and what was Albert Einstein's thing on insanity? He said, if you keep on doing the same thing expecting a different result, you are insane. Because it will still be the same thing. If it's like the lottery, if you keep playing the same damn numbers, sure, you may hit the number, but you lose more money than you do gain. And that's another thing I'm going to talk about adults. Adults, they always think that, if they do the same damn thing, they think that, I'm going to get the good life. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to make sure my kids have the best. But yet, you treat your kids as if they are the worst. Over what? Because of your own petty decisions? And then, looking at adults nowadays, it's real sad. They act more like teenagers, and, the kids, what happened with the Jacksons and all that stuff. I understand the Jacksons were beat into business, and I fucking hate Joe Jackson, so I give a big middle finger to Joe Jackson. Fuck him. Honestly, I hate Joe Jackson for that reason alone, because he abused those kids, and those kids were forced to grow up. Hence why some of them have problems now, and one of them, passed away. Rest in peace, Michael Jackson. Your music and your message will never be forgotten. But, and how to weigh the responsibility of an adult has been thrusted upon the kid. Now the adults, they are afraid to take responsibility. But when you look at the children, they, in a sense, how to wait. I remember my dad always said that, he talked about he had to grow up real quick. My cousin, he also said that he had to grow up real quick because, they had to survive. Okay, survival standpoint, yes, I understand. But when you're an adult and you understand that survival is the essence of nature, but once you overindulge in it and you think that, it's every man for himself, you realize that there's no point into doing that. It's stupid. And people who thrive off of negative emotions, who thrive off of misery, who thrives off of negative gain, aka Cree Flow Dollar, along with a bunch of a plethora of other fucking, religious salesmen, man, they get richer while you get sicker. What did Karisman once said? He said, while religions get richer, our society gets sicker and sicker and sicker. Like God, we're like liquor, like God, we're like religion, we are God intoxicated. I know not every religion is going to be like that, but you got to catch my drift. But when you look at, how the way adulthood is not at its best because either the adults, they don't want to deal with reality, or, your own family members. When you look at your own family members and you realize that, wait a minute, what the hell are they doing? And you see like the older members of your family members probably in their like late 20s, early 30s, 40s, and 50s, like not in that elder stage where they are like, 60, 70, and 80. And then looking at them, you realize like, wait a minute, what the hell are you fools doing? You busy killing each other, conquering each other, trying to look at each other like enemies, but yet you're not doing anything at all. And the state of, adulthood, especially black adulthood, is real sad because when I look at, black adulthood, it's not, I repeat, it is not at like the greatest standpoint like it used to be. Like back when we were not brought up in chains, we had rites of passage. We had to prove that we were adults. We didn't have age to tell us how the way we should and should not act. That was a Eurocentric way of thinking. We had to prove it. And then we had to earn the respects, earn the rites of passage, earn the rights of being an adult. But then now, flash forward to now, or black forward to now. And then look at this. We become the very same condition that our ancestors went through. And yet we want to say, how come all of this is happening? I'm going to say, did you read your history or did you learn your history? Because if you repeat history, that means you never learned this lesson. Because as soon as you learn this lesson, you realize that what must be done and what has to stop. And I know I have to learn that myself as well. I'm still learning it. Like I said before, life in itself is a lesson. But there are little mini lessons until you reach the grand lesson. And as soon as you reach the grand lesson, either you're going to be at your best or you're going to be at your worst. And some of you may ask, hey, Clash, how does this tie in, with adulthood? How does this tie in with your view on adulthood? And I'll tell you this, simple. Because if you look at, you have to remember, in life, you never stop growing until the day you die. Like I mentioned before from my teacher, my trigonometry teacher. And, when he said that, I didn't get it at first, but I still remembered it. But then I looked at now, maybe I connected to like a standpoint where I was just like, okay, now I get it. But, then again, it could be interpreted in many different ways. Just like adulthood, everybody grows up differently, so their vision of adulthood can be different. But when it comes right down to being stable, you have to be yourself. And some people would rather put like a noose around your neck or hold you in a chain and try to make sure to say like, this is what you need to do and that's what you need to do. And if you don't do that, I'll smack the shit out of you. And then I mentioned before how the way, I talked about black adulthood is not that good. and how the way, we got black fathers, not all of them, you know, when you look at them, some of them, they just rather look at a black woman as if she's a piece of meat. And I mentioned before, I'm always going to turn to this goddamn box right here. See this fucking TV? They follow that more than they follow their own damn consciousness. They follow their own damn, willpower. They follow their own damn what? What is it? What is it? What is that thing? Oh yeah, good. Not only goodwill, but emotion. They're afraid to follow their emotion because this Eurocentric society taught them how to not feel, which is bullshit. You just didn't want to end up vulnerable. Everybody's going to be vulnerable. Even the lion. Even the greatest lion, once he becomes old, will become vulnerable. Why are you afraid of becoming vulnerable? Because you're afraid of getting taken advantage of? Let me tell you something. You took advantage of your kids. You took advantage of everyone else, but the sad fact of life is you forgot to take advantage of your damn self. And how you take advantage of your damn self? By telling yourself, like, wait a minute, if I want to do this, I'll do it on my own terms. And that's acceptance in nature. See, another thing about adulthood, in my viewpoint, and how all this connects, is acceptance. Because, not many people are ready to accept adulthood. Not many people are ready for adulthood. I know I'm not. But when the time comes, I will be ready. Because mentally, I know I'm ready. And I'm ready to take on that burden. I'm ready to work. I'm ready to own a business. I'm ready to do all that. But at the same time, I have to prepare. As much as I hate studying and taking tests, that's going to be a hell of a job. Oh, man. But still, when you look at that, and you look at the fact that, with acceptance comes responsibility, and with the responsibility comes a need, and a need to do something. And the fact that not many adults are afraid, are not ready or afraid to take up that responsibility, it goes on back to what Paul Mooney once said. And I remember this from, the Dave Chappelle show. And he said, the reason why, the reason why some black people, when it comes right down to it, the reason why we party so much is because, we're afraid. And it is sad. I'm sorry that was a terrible Paul Mooney impression. I did it well before, but never mind that. But the message was clearly there. He said the reason why, black people party so much is to escape, and it becomes real sad. And if you're an adult and you're practicing escapism, and you're not ready to face reality, or you're scared of reality, then honestly, you're not an adult in my eyes. I can understand that you want to protect your kids from, from the harshness of reality, but that doesn't help them at all. And I remember I saw on the news, this one woman, it was during the Baltimore riots, where this woman was beating her son, and they got it on CNN and all that other shit, man. And they're saying, like, that woman did the right thing. In that case, I can understand that she wanted to discipline her son and make sure that he was safe, but no. I disagreed immensely. Not only you humiliated your own son in front of national television, but you also humiliated yourself. Because people mentioned the fact that she also had like 6 other children and, all that other crap. And then to make matters, even funnier, if your son is trying to stand up for what is right, and you're trying to beat him back into submission, you realize that, you're not practicing adulthood that is right, and that's standing up against wrong. And if you know what's wrong, if you know what's morally wrong, whether it's internally or externally, you gotta speak up and say no. You can't do that. But what that mother did was, practicing escapism at its finest. And when I looked at that, I was just like, man, that's not right. You can't do that. You cannot beat your son and then say that, oh, wait a minute, I'm gonna beat you in front of national television. And that proves how much of a caring mom or how much of a caring adult I am. No, what does not, man. Because they're just gonna plaster you up and just try to say, "Oh, this is a astounding adult right here. This is an astounding mom, an outstanding mom." No, she is not, man. She's playing right into the goddamn game. Because when it comes right down to it, the youth, especially when they realize something's wrong, they have to speak out, especially if the adults are cowards. And some of you may ask, but Clash, how does this tie in, with adulthood in your perspective? How does this tie in, with adulthood? What is your take on being an adult? And I told you all this. If you listen to the whole video, I guess I'll sum it up in a summary right now. My take on being an adult takes acceptance, understanding, moral stability, and morale boosting stability. Being able to say no, knowing what is right for you, knowing what it means to have responsibility, knowing what it means to not be afraid, and standing up for yourself, and especially when there's trouble, standing up for your own people. And especially in black adulthood, especially in black manhood, black womanhood, black, especially, black childhood, that's a situation in itself. But, black adulthood, especially when you have a mentally scarred, individual, especially of African descent, that's bad. Because if you don't know yourself, how do you expect people to teach you about yourself if you don't choose to, do it yourself? Sure, you may give a man, the hard, bitter pill known as the truth, but some of them may not want it. And now for the conclusion. That bitter pill known as the truth, not even adults can handle it. And that's the 11th, not final, but the 11th, but the most important ingredient. Able to handle the truth. If you are able to handle the truth, then you have nothing to worry about. So you don't have to make up a damn excuse. You don't have to make up a lie in order to live your life. You could just be yourself. And that's beautiful. But, when you look at, 12 and 13, I understand 13 is a bad luck number, but, 13 is a bit of a high number too. Even though numbers are infinite, but 13 is a bit of like a higher base number. See, 12, stand, like I said before, but stand on your own 2 feet. And I said being moral, having a moral standpoint, but standing on your own 2 feet, especially when it comes right down to self-defense. And then 13, which is the final one, that is build a stable environment. If you follow those 13 steps, you become a good adult, in my viewpoint. Even if you master number 11 without mastering all of them, you're on your way. Because adulthood is never easy. Some say, if you're a kid, you last up until like 40 years or so. Because you still haven't developed on who you want to be or you haven't established yourself yet. But with that, YouTube, I say this is Bruno Clash, sign out, one. And I would like to hear, what is your view on adulthood? And what's your take on adults now? And I say, as I usually say, I love y'all, later. And if you agree with what I said, have a like and say that you agree. And if you don't agree, dislike and say why you don't agree. And that's good. But be respectful. All right? Later.